in the heart of the bustling Atlantic International Airport. A familiar hum of activity enveloped the terminal, a symphony of rolling suitcases, hurried footsteps, and the constant drone of announcements echoing across the vast space. Among the throngs of travelers, one particular pair caught the eye, a tall, distinguished black man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, his hand firmly clasped around that of his bright-eyed 7-year-old daughter. "Daddy, look, that's our plane," Maya Lewis exclaimed, her voice a sweet melody of excitement that cut through the chaotic atmosphere. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation as she pointed towards a gleaming white aircraft adorned with elegant blue trim, glimmering under the fluorescent lights. David Lewis, the CEO of Empire Airlines, smiled warmly at his daughter's enthusiasm, his heart swelling with pride. "That's right, sweetheart. One of ours," he replied, ruffling her dark curls affectionately. Though his mind was partly occupied with thoughts of the upcoming business meeting that had necessitated this last-minute flight, he relished this rare moment with Maya. Today, he had given in to her persistent pleas to join him on a business trip, knowing it coincided with her school break. "Remember what we talked about?" he reminded her as they approached the priority boarding line. Maya nodded solemnly, her small frame bouncing with excitement and nerves. "Best behavior. Inside voice. And no jumping on the seats, even if they're super bouncy," she recited, her face lighting up with pride at remembering the rules. David chuckled, leaning down to adjust the collar of her sunny yellow dress, a bright spot amidst the muted tones of the airport. "That's my girl. And what else? If I need anything, ask the flight attendant politely," she added, beaming as they made their way down the jet bridge, her pink backpack bouncing with every skip. Yet, a familiar pang of guilt tugged at David's conscience. He would have to leave Maya alone in first class while he attended to urgent meetings in economy. It wasn't ideal, but at least she would be comfortable. "Good morning, Mr. Lewis," greeted Captain Phillips warmly at the aircraft door, extending his hand. "It's an honor to have you aboard today." "Thank you, Captain," David replied, shaking the captain's hand firmly. "This is my daughter, Maya." Maya gave a small curtsy, her wide smile causing both men to chuckle. "The pleasure is all mine, young lady," the captain replied, tipping his hat playfully. "I hope you enjoy your flight with us today." As they settled into first class, a flight attendant with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a rehearsed smile approached them. Her name tag read Sophia, and her voice dripped with sweetness as she greeted them. "Welcome aboard. Can I help you find your seats?" "We're in 2A and 2B, David said, gesturing towards their seats. "Actually, I have a favor to ask. I need to attend to some business in economy during the flight, and I was hoping you could keep an eye on my daughter." Sophia's smile widened, but David could sense an underlying tension. "Of course, sir. We'll take excellent care of her," she assured him, turning to Maya. "Aren't you lucky to be flying in first class today?" Maya shifted closer to her father, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face as she caught the condescending tone in Sophia's voice. David, distracted by an incoming text about the meeting, missed the subtle change in atmosphere. "Thank you, Sophia." "Maya, sweetie, let's get you settled." David helped his daughter into her window seat, stowing her backpack underneath. He retrieved her favorite stuffed elephant, Mr. Fluffy, placing it gently in her lap. "Now remember, I'll be back to check on you as soon as I can. If you need anything at all, Sophia will help you." Okay, Daddy," Maya said softly, her eyes lingering on him even as he turned to leave. As David made his way to economy, he felt a pang of guilt for leaving her alone. He glanced back one last time, waving to Maya, who gave a small wave in return, her smile wavering slightly. Once David disappeared from sight, Sophia's demeanor shifted dramatically. The warmth evaporated from her smile, replaced by barely concealed contempt. "Stay in your seat and don't cause any trouble," she said curtly to Maya, turning on her heel and striding away. Maya clutched Mr. Fluffy closer, confusion swirling in her mind. What had she done to deserve this treatment? As other passengers boarded, she noticed how Sophia greeted them with genuine warmth, everyone except her. Feeling small and neglected, Maya tried to focus on the safety demonstration. She wanted to catch Sophia's eye to ask for the water her father had mentioned, but Sophia deliberately avoided her gaze. The moment the plane took off, Maya felt her ears pop, just as her father had warned. She remembered that swallowing might help but really needed some water. Gathering her courage, she pressed the call button. Moments later, Sophia appeared, her face tight with annoyance. "What now?" she snapped, clearly irritated by the interruption. "May I please have some water?" Maya asked. Her voice small. Service hasn't started yet. You'll have to wait. Sophia replied dismissively, walking away without another word. Feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes, Maya fought to hold them back, desperately wishing for her father's presence. As the minutes dragged on, she realized she was alone in a world that suddenly felt very cold. Little did Maya know. The flight ahead would bring more than just the thrill of takeoff, it would reveal the harsh realities of prejudice and injustice that no child should ever have to face. The plane's engines roared to life, a powerful reminder that they were no longer on solid ground. Maya felt the vibrations beneath her as they began to taxi down the runway, her heart racing with excitement and a hint of anxiety. She pressed her nose against the window, watching as the world outside blurred into a patchwork of colors, the vibrant greens of the fields, the gray of the asphalt, and the bright blues of the sky. She loved flying, it made her feel like she was part of something bigger, something magical. Are we really flying? Daddy, she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. David glanced over from his seat across the aisle, smiling at her enthusiasm. Absolutely. Sweetheart. We're going to soar through the clouds like birds, he replied, trying to keep his tone light despite the weight of his business concerns looming in the back of his mind. As the plane lifted off the ground, Maya felt a thrill rush through her. She clutched Mr. Fluffy tightly, feeling the gentle rise and fall of her stomach as they ascended higher and higher. Look at all the tiny houses. Daddy, she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with joy. They look like toys. David chuckled softly, his heart warmed by her innocent excitement. They do, don't they? Just wait until you see the clouds. They're like cotton candy up here. But as the plane reached cruising altitude, a shift occurred in the cabin atmosphere. The calm and exhilarating sensation of flight was suddenly overshadowed by the abrupt change in Sophia's demeanor. With David away, Sophia's facade of friendliness disappeared completely. All right, kids, she announced to the first-class cabin, her voice dripping with condescension. Now that we're airborne, it's time to settle down. This isn't a playground. So stay in your seats and keep quiet. Understood? Maya's smile faltered at the harsh tone. She was just about to raise her hand to ask for the water again when Sophia walked past, pointedly ignoring her. The other passengers were being greeted with cheerful attentiveness, and the disparity left Maya feeling isolated and confused. As the flight settled into its rhythm, the food service began in the first-class section. The enticing aroma of freshly prepared meals wafted through the cabin, and Maya's stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten much that morning. She watched with longing as trays filled with delicious dishes passed her by, each passenger receiving care and attention while she was overlooked. Maya pressed the call button again, her heart racing with trepidation. A few moments later, Sophia appeared, her expression annoyed. What is it now? She snapped, her patience clearly wearing thin. May I please have something to eat? Maya asked, her voice trembling slightly. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Your father didn't order a meal for you. We don't have any extra children's meals available, she replied curtly, turning away before Maya could respond. A wave of disappointment washed over Maya. She didn't understand why Sophia was being so mean. Her father had promised her that everyone deserved respect, and she had used her manners just like he taught her. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she watched the other passengers enjoying their meals, the warm food teasing her stomach even more. Just then, an elderly woman seated behind Maya noticed her distress. Excuse me, the woman said, her voice gentle. I'm not very hungry. Perhaps this young lady could have my meal. Sophia's face flushed with anger, but she maintained her composure. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're not allowed to transfer meals between passengers. It's against company policy, she said, her tone dismissive. Maya watched helplessly as the elderly woman frowned but didn't push the issue. The woman's sympathetic gaze lingered on her for just a moment before she turned away, and Maya felt a lump form in her throat. Why was no one willing to stand up for her? Minutes dragged on, feeling like hours as Maya battled her growing discomfort. The chill in the cabin seeped through her short-sleeved dress, and she wrapped her arms around herself, wishing for a warm blanket. She pressed the call button again, desperate for help. When Sophia arrived this time, she was visibly irritated. What now? She huffed. I'm cold. Can I please have a blanket? Maya whispered, feeling small and vulnerable. Sophia rolled her eyes. Make it quick, she snapped, turning sharply on her heel. A moment later, she returned, practically tossing a blanket at Maya without even bothering to remove it from its plastic wrapper. Anything else? Sophia asked sarcastically, her voice dripping with disdain. Maya's lower lip trembled as she struggled to unwrap the blanket. "No thank you," she managed to say, fighting back tears. She didn't understand why Sophia was treating her this way. She hugged Mr. Fluffy tightly, seeking comfort from the soft fur. As the hours dragged on, Maya felt more and more alone. Each time she glanced towards the cockpit, she longed for her father's comforting presence. What would he say if he could see how she was being treated? The minutes crawled by like an eternity, and she watched the clouds outside the window, trying to distract herself from her growling stomach and the icy loneliness that settled in her chest. Finally, just when Maya thought the ordeal would never end, David returned to first class, his face lighting up as he saw her. "Hey, princess," he called, crouching down beside her seat. "How are you doing?" Maya turned to him, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm okay, Daddy. Just a little tired." David noticed her untouched tray table and the emptiness in her cup holder. "Have you had anything to eat or drink?" he asked. Concern etched across his features. Before Maya could respond, Sophia swooped in, her demeanor shifting again. "Sir, I was just about to bring Maya a fresh snack. She's been such a delightful passenger," she chimed, her voice sweet as honey. Maya's heart sank as she realized the facade was back, and David glanced at her, his brow furrowing. "Are you sure you're all right?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for the truth. "I'm just tired, Daddy," she replied softly, her heart racing at the thought of revealing what had been happening. "Your daughter is an absolute angel," Sophia interjected smoothly. But David's instincts told him something was very wrong. As Maya clung to Mr. Fluffy, she could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her small shoulders. Little did she know, the journey ahead would challenge her understanding of trust and safety in ways she could never have imagined. And all the while, her father remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. As the flight settled into its routine, the initial thrill of takeoff began to fade, replaced by an unsettling tension that Maya couldn't quite put her finger on. With her father preoccupied in his business meeting, she felt increasingly isolated, lost in the expanse of the first-class cabin that had once seemed so inviting. Maya glanced around at the other passengers, who were engrossed in their own conversations or attentively watching the in-flight entertainment. No one seemed to notice the quiet storm brewing within her. Each time she dared to catch Sophia's eye, the flight attendant turned her back, as if Maya didn't exist at all. When the meal service finally began, Maya's stomach growled loudly, a reminder that she had skipped breakfast in her excitement. The tantalizing aroma of gourmet food wafted through the cabin, making her mouth water. She watched as trays were served, passengers enjoying their meals, laughter and clinking cutlery filling the air. Each moment felt like a slap in the face, a reminder of her neglect. "Maya, sweetheart, are you sure you're okay?" David's voice broke through her thoughts as he returned from economy class. He crouched down next to her seat, concern etched across his face. "I'm fine, Daddy," she replied, forcing a smile despite the tightness in her chest. "Just a little hungry." Before she could elaborate, Sophia approached with a tray in hand, her fake smile plastered across her face. "Good news, everyone. We're serving our delightful 3-course meal now." She paused, her gaze landing on Maya, who sat with wide eyes, except for the little girl who didn't pre-order a meal. Of course. The condescension in Sophia's voice felt like a punch to Maya's gut. She wanted to speak up, to say that her father had ordered food for her, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she shrank back in her seat, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment as Sophia moved on to the next passenger, ignoring her completely. Moments later, Maya summoned the courage to press the call button once more. This time, she felt a strange mix of hope and dread. When Sophia appeared, her annoyance was palpable. "What now?" she snapped. "May I please have something to eat?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophia's eyes narrowed, her irritation palpable. "I already told you. We don't have any extra meals for you. If your father wanted you to eat, he should have made sure he ordered something for you." "But I'm hungry," Maya pleaded, her heart racing as she fought back tears. Sophia leaned in closer, her voice low and dripping with disdain. "Listen, little girl. You're in first class now, and that means you need to behave. You can't just expect special treatment because you think you're entitled to it," she said, her tone condescending. "So just sit tight and don't make any more trouble." The harshness of Sophia's words stung like a slap across the face, and Maya felt the tears she had been holding back begin to spill over. How could someone be so cruel? She looked down at her lap, hugging Mr. Fluffy tightly, seeking solace in the softness of his fur. The cabin filled with the sounds of clattering dishes and cheerful conversation, while Maya felt increasingly invisible, as if she were trapped in a bubble that separated her from the rest of the world. She caught the sympathetic glance of the elderly woman from earlier, who looked like she wanted to help. But Sophia's watchful eyes kept everyone in check. "Are you all right, dear?" the woman whispered, her concern genuine. Maya nodded, though her heart ached. "I just want to eat," she replied, her voice cracking. Sophia overheard and interjected, her tone biting. "She's just a little air-sick. That's all," she lied smoothly, a wicked glint in her eye as she walked away, leaving Maya feeling even smaller and more vulnerable. As the flight progressed, Maya's discomfort grew. The temperature in the cabin dropped, and she wrapped her arms around herself, wishing she had worn something warmer. She pressed the call button again, this time hoping for a blanket. When Sophia finally appeared, it was with a scowl. "What now?" she asked impatiently. "I'm cold. Can I please have a blanket?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophia huffed, rolling her eyes. "You should have thought about that before you decided to come on this flight." Without waiting for a response, she stormed off, only to return a moment later, tossing a blanket at Maya, who barely caught it before it fell to the floor. "Anything else?" Sophia asked sarcastically, her disdain palpable. Maya's heart sank. She didn't want to ask for anything more. The blanket was still wrapped in plastic, and it felt like a cruel joke. She fumbled with it, trying to unwrap it while Sophia glared at her, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "Can't you even manage to open a blanket?" Sophia muttered, turning her back and walking away. Maya felt the heat of humiliation wash over her as she finally managed to open the blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. She wished her father would come back soon. She wanted to tell him everything. The minutes stretched on, and the cabin grew colder, the atmosphere thick with tension. With each passing moment, Maya felt more isolated. She thought about her father's earlier words about respect and kindness. It seemed impossible to reconcile those lessons with the harsh reality she was facing. The plane hit turbulence, jolting Maya from her thoughts. She gripped her seat, her heart racing. Just as she steadied herself, she accidentally knocked over an empty plastic cup that had been left on the tray table. The cup rolled off, landing with a soft thud on the floor. Sophia whipped around, her eyes blazing with anger. "This is what happens when parents don't teach their children proper manners," she exclaimed loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. Maya shrank in her seat, tears threatening to spill over again. How could someone be so cruel? The humiliation felt unbearable, and she wished more than anything that she could just disappear. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cabin, Maya clutched Mr. Fluffy, trying to find comfort in his softness. She didn't understand why Sophia was being so mean. She had done nothing wrong. The minutes crawled by like hours. She longed for her father, for the warmth of his embrace. But he was busy with his important work, oblivious to her distress. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Just as her fears reached a crescendo, the intercom crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've encountered a bit of turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." The plane lurched suddenly, and Maya gasped as the glass of juice in front of her teetered precariously. In that moment, everything seemed to move in slow motion. The glass tipped, spilling juice across her tray table and onto her dress before clattering to the floor. The cabin fell silent as passengers turned to see what had happened. Sophia's head snapped around, her face a mask of rage. "You clumsy little brat," she hissed, grabbing Maya's arm roughly. "I knew you'd make a mess. You're nothing but trouble." "I'm sorry. It was an accident," Maya cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. But Sophia's grip tightened painfully, her voice low and filled with venom. "Don't make excuses. Look at this mess." She yanked Maya's arm hard and struck her shoulder in a swift, cruel movement that was disguised as a reach for napkins. Maya stifled a cry, the pain shooting through her arm, and watched helplessly as Sophia leaned in closer, her voice a whisper but filled with malice. "You think you belong up here? You don't. You're nothing but a spoiled little girl." As tears flowed freely down her face, Maya wished for her father more than ever. She felt the weight of Sophia's cruelty pressing down on her, and for the first time, she understood the raw sting of prejudice and injustice she couldn't comprehend but felt deep in her bones. Little did she know, the storm was just beginning, and her father would soon be drawn into the fray, compelled to protect his little girl from the harsh realities of the world. The atmosphere in first class grew tense as Maya struggled to wipe away her tears. She felt exposed and vulnerable, the sting of humiliation sharp in her chest. Sophia's harsh words echoed in her mind, twisting like a knife. You don't belong up here. Each moment felt heavier, suffocating her in an invisible grip. As the flight continued, the contrast between the other passengers' pleasant interactions and her own misery became even more pronounced. Maya could hear snippets of laughter, clinking glasses, and the pleasant chatter of adults enjoying their meals, while she remained a silent spectator, invisible in a world that had turned cold and hostile. Desperate to escape the torment, she glanced at the window, watching the clouds drift lazily by. They looked so soft, almost inviting. For a moment, she imagined herself floating on a fluffy cloud, far away from the biting reality of the plane and Sophia's cruel taunts. But the comfort was fleeting, and soon the pangs of hunger and loneliness returned. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our meal service shortly, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, and Maya's stomach growled in response. She glanced hopefully at Sophia, who was busy preparing trays for the other passengers. Maybe now would be her chance to get something to eat. Maya, Sophia said, striding over with an exaggerated smile. I hope you're ready for a delightful lunch. But the false sweetness in her tone was unmistakable, and Maya felt her stomach knot. As Sophia served the other first-class passengers, Maya's heart sank with each passing moment. She watched with envy as the flight attendant delivered perfectly plated dishes and warm smiles. When Sophia reached the last passenger in the row, Maya took a deep breath, ready to summon her courage. Excuse me, Sophia, she said, her voice trembling slightly. May I please have something to eat? Sophia's smile disappeared, replaced by a glare. I told you before. We don't have extra meals, she snapped. Your father should have pre-ordered for you. If you were a better passenger, maybe I'd consider it. The humiliation washed over Maya again, hot and suffocating. She fought back tears, her small frame trembling. Just then, the elderly woman from before spoke up, her voice firm and compassionate. That's not fair. She's just a little girl. Can't you see she's hungry? Sophia's eyes narrowed, her expression turning icy. It's not my problem. If the child can't behave, maybe she shouldn't be in first class. Maya felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, her heart racing as the woman continued to defend her. All she's asking for is a meal. It's ridiculous to treat her this way. Sophia turned on the woman, her voice dripping with condescension. I'm the flight attendant here. I know how to do my job. And this isn't a charity. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other passengers to attend to. Maya could hardly breathe, feeling the tension rise in the cabin as whispers spread among the other passengers. They had begun to notice the treatment she was receiving, and she felt their eyes on her, some with concern, others with disinterest. But what she needed most was her father. Just then, she caught sight of David making his way back from economy class. Relief flooded through her, and she raised her hand, calling out, "Daddy." David's head whipped around at the sound of her voice, his expression shifting from calm to concern in an instant. He hurried towards her, the urgency in his stride palpable. "Maya, what's wrong?" The moment he reached her, Maya broke down. "Daddy, I'm hungry, and Sophia won't let me eat." She pointed to the flight attendant, her voice catching in her throat. David turned sharply to Sophia, his eyes blazing with anger. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice steady but laced with tension. Sophia straightened her posture, feigning innocence. "Sir, your daughter has been disruptive. She didn't order a meal, and I was simply following protocol." "Disruptive?" David echoed, incredulous. "She's a 7-year-old girl. You're supposed to be looking after her, not treating her like this." The tension in the cabin thickened as passengers turned to witness the unfolding confrontation. Maya felt their eyes on her, the weight of their gaze adding to her anxiety. "Your daughter has been nothing but a perfect passenger," the elderly woman interjected, her voice rising in defense. "She deserves to be treated with respect, just like everyone else." Sophia scoffed, her composure faltering. "This is first class, and if she can't handle it, perhaps she shouldn't be here." David took a step closer to Sophia, his tone cold and measured. "You're wrong. Every passenger, no matter their age, deserves kindness and respect, especially a child. This behavior is unacceptable." Maya watched as David's presence seemed to fill the space, the authority in his voice silencing the murmurs and gasps around them. It felt good to have him by her side, standing up for her. "I want to know why my daughter was treated this way," he continued, glaring at Sophia. "She deserves an explanation." Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat as she realized she had crossed a line. The other passengers were no longer just observers, They were allies in this moment of truth. Before Sophia could respond, David turned to Maya, crouching down to her level. "Maya, are you all right?" he asked. His voice gentle. "I just wanted something to eat, Daddy," she said, her voice trembling. "And I don't understand why she's being so mean." David's heart sank as he realized how deeply this was affecting her. "I know. Sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. I'll take care of this." With that, David stood up, his gaze never leaving Sophia. "I expect this to be addressed immediately. My daughter deserves to be treated with the same respect as every other passenger on this flight." Sophia's expression shifted from defiance to panic, realizing the gravity of the situation. The cabin buzzed with whispers as passengers exchanged looks of disbelief. The captain, who had been observing from the cockpit, stepped into the fray. "What's happening here?" he demanded, his voice authoritative. David turned to the captain, the tension palpable in the air. "This flight attendant has been treating my daughter poorly, neglecting her needs, and has crossed a line. I want this documented, and I want her held accountable." The captain's expression hardened as he assessed the situation. "I will not tolerate any form of mistreatment on my flight," he stated firmly. Then turned to Sophia. "You are to step aside. I'll handle this." As the passengers watched, Sophia's mask of control crumbled, replaced by a fearful realization that her actions had consequences. Maya felt a glimmer of hope spark within her. Her father was here, and he was fighting for her. David knelt beside Maya once more, wrapping his arms around her. "You're safe now, Princess. I promise," he whispered, his voice steady and warm. As the plane continued its journey through the skies, the tension in first class began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of solidarity among the passengers. They had witnessed the unfairness and were no longer willing to stand idly by. For Maya, this moment became a turning point, an awakening to the realities of injustice, but also a reminder that sometimes strength comes from the most unexpected places. And with her father by her side, she was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The atmosphere in the cabin had shifted dramatically. What had begun as a serene flight now crackled with tension, an unspoken understanding weaving through the passengers. They had all witnessed the mistreatment Maya endured at the hands of Sophia, and with David now at her side, a quiet courage surged among them. "Sir," the captain said, his voice commanding as he faced Sophia, "please step aside. I will be taking over this situation." Sophia opened her mouth to protest, but the captain's unwavering gaze silenced her. "Now," he said firmly, motioning for her to move toward the back of the cabin. The passengers watched, their eyes wide, as David held Maya close, shielding her from the unfolding chaos. "Maya," David said gently, kneeling beside her seat again, his voice low and soothing. "Are you all right? I'm so sorry you had to go through this." "I just wanted something to eat, Daddy," Maya replied, her voice barely a whisper, the weight of the day pressing down on her. "And she was so mean to me." David's heart ached at her words. He had always taught Maya about kindness and respect. But here she was, facing the harsh reality of prejudice and cruelty. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. I promise I'll make sure you get something to eat," he said, brushing a stray curl from her face, a gesture of comfort in a storm of emotions. Meanwhile, Sophia stood at the back of the cabin, her demeanor visibly shaken. The captain approached her, his voice steady and authoritative. "You need to understand that this behavior is unacceptable. You were in charge of that child, and instead of caring for her, you chose to belittle and mistreat her. That cannot happen again." Sophia's facade of confidence was crumbling. "I was just following protocol," she protested weakly. "Following protocol does not excuse cruelty," the captain shot back, his tone unyielding. "A child deserves kindness, especially in an environment where they should feel safe. Your actions were inexcusable." As the captain spoke, Maya's heart raced, and she felt a surge of hope. Would this man stand up for her? Would he make things right? Just then, the elderly woman who had spoken up earlier approached David and Maya, her expression warm and supportive. "You're not alone, dear. We all saw how she treated you," she said, her voice gentle. "You deserve to be treated with respect, just like everyone else on this flight." Maya looked up at her, grateful for the kindness. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling the tears that had threatened to spill over finally start to recede. David straightened up, his protective instincts surging again. "I want to document this incident, and I want to speak with the authorities when we land," he declared, glancing around the cabin. "This is about more than just my daughter. It's about ensuring that no one else has to endure this kind of treatment." Sophia stood frozen, the weight of David's words pressing down on her. She had always prided herself on her role as a flight attendant. And now, faced with the consequences of her actions, she felt the ground shift beneath her. "Sir, I can assure you that this behavior will not be tolerated in my cabin," the captain said, turning to address the rest of the passengers. "I want to assure you all that we take this very seriously. Anyone who witnesses mistreatment has a responsibility to speak up. And I thank those who have already come forward." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her, bolstered by the support of the other passengers. She was no longer invisible, she was being seen and heard. As the captain returned to Sophia, his tone was now filled with authority. "You will be temporarily removed from your duties until we can conduct a full review of your actions today. You will not be serving on this flight anymore." Sophia's face drained of color. "But, I didn't mean to," she stammered, realizing the magnitude of what she had done. The captain shook his head. "Your intentions don't matter if your actions harm others. I suggest you take this time to reflect on how you treat people." Maya watched as Sophia turned away, her face a mix of anger and fear. The flight attendant who had been called in to replace her was already making her way to the front, a look of concern on her face. David knelt beside Maya again, his expression filled with pride. "You were so brave, my love. I'm proud of you for speaking up." As the new flight attendant approached, she offered Maya a warm smile. "I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Would you like something to eat now? I can bring you a snack right away." "Yes, please," Maya replied, her spirits lifting. "Anything for this little girl," the flight attendant said, glancing at David with a nod of understanding. Maya felt a rush of gratitude as the flight attendant quickly prepared a meal for her, ensuring that she felt cared for. As she took her first bite, the warmth of the food filled her with comfort and security. David watched Maya eat, his heart swelling with love and relief. He had fought for her, stood up for her, and now she was safe. But he knew this experience would linger in her mind, shaping how she viewed the world. The cabin buzzed with conversation as passengers exchanged their thoughts about the incident, many sharing their own stories of unfair treatment. There was a collective sense of solidarity, a bond formed through shared experiences of injustice. Maya looked around at the people who had come together in support of her, feeling a sense of belonging that had eluded her for much of the flight. With her father by her side and the kindness of strangers enveloping her, she began to believe that she could face anything. As the plane soared through the sky, Maya felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She had learned that standing up against injustice was not just about facing one flight attendant, it was about being part of a larger conversation, one that would lead to change. And with her father as her unwavering ally, Maya knew she was ready to take on the world. As the flight settled back into its routine, the tension in the cabin began to dissipate, but the air was still charged with the echoes of the confrontation. Maya felt a warmth spread through her as the new flight attendant, Clara, approached with a gentle smile, her demeanor a stark contrast to Sophia's coldness. "Hello again, sweetheart," Clara said, her voice soothing. "I've brought you a snack. How does a peanut butter and jelly sandwich sound?" Maya's eyes lit up, and her stomach growled in response. "That sounds amazing," she exclaimed, feeling a rush of gratitude for the kindness she had been shown. As Clara set the tray in front of her, David watched with a mix of relief and pride. He could see the tension easing from Maya's shoulders as she took her first bite, savoring the familiar flavors. It was as if each mouthful was washing away the bitterness of the previous hours. "Thank you, Clara," David said, turning his attention to the flight attendant. "I really appreciate how you're handling this." "Of course, Mr. Lewis," Clara replied. "It's my job to ensure every passenger feels safe and cared for. I'm so sorry for what happened. That kind of treatment is absolutely unacceptable." Maya, now feeling more at ease, glanced around at the other passengers, many of whom were engaged in quiet conversations, exchanging sympathetic looks and nods in her direction. It felt like she was part of something bigger, a collective understanding that resonated throughout the cabin. As the flight continued, David took a moment to collect his thoughts. The reality of what had just occurred weighed heavily on him. He felt a surge of anger at how Maya had been treated, but also a deep sense of responsibility to ensure that something like this would never happen again. Once they reached cruising altitude, David leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Clara, I need to speak with the captain as soon as possible. I want to make sure this incident is documented and reported. It's crucial that we hold Sophia accountable for her actions." "Absolutely. I'll let him know right away," Clara said, her expression serious. "We'll make sure this is taken seriously. You have my word." After a few moments, The captain stepped out of the cockpit. His expression grave. Mr. Lewis. I understand there was an incident regarding your daughter. I want to assure you that we're taking this matter very seriously. Thank you, Captain. David replied. His tone steady. I'd like to formally document what happened. I want to make sure that Sophia faces consequences for her actions. She mistreated my daughter. And that cannot be overlooked. The captain nodded. His expression firm. I completely agree. This behavior is not reflective of our standards as an airline. I'll ensure a full report is made. And I'll personally see to it that appropriate action is taken. Maya looked up at her father. Her heart swelling with pride. He was fighting for her. Ensuring that justice would be served. She had felt so powerless earlier. But now she realized that standing up for herself meant something, not just to her, but to everyone who had witnessed the injustice. Thank you, Captain, David said. Appreciation lacing his words. I want this incident to spark a conversation about how we treat passengers. Especially children. There needs to be a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of behavior. Absolutely, the captain replied. His resolve evident. We will review our training protocols and implement changes to ensure that all crew members are aware of their responsibilities. Especially when it comes to children. It's unacceptable for anyone to feel unsafe while flying with us. As they spoke, the mood in the cabin began to shift. Passengers leaned in. Their curiosity piqued. Some exchanged murmurs of support for Maya and her father, while others nodded in agreement with David's stance. Clara returned with a notepad, ready to take notes. If you could recount what happened. I'll document everything for the captain's report, she said. Her tone encouraging. David turned to Maya, who had finished her snack and was looking more composed. Maya, would you like to tell Clara what happened? He asked gently. Maya hesitated for a moment. The memories still fresh and painful. But as she looked into her father's eyes, she felt a surge of courage. Okay, she replied, her voice steadying. With Clara's attentive ear, Maya recounted her experience. She spoke of the mean comments Sophia had made, how she felt invisible and neglected, and the moment when the juice had spilled. With each word, she felt a weight lifting off her shoulders, as if sharing her story was a step towards healing. Clara listened intently, her expression filled with empathy. Thank you for sharing, Maya. You're very brave, she said softly. Your voice matters. And I'm so glad you spoke up. David squeezed Maya's hand, pride swelling within him. You did great, sweetheart. I'm proud of you for being so brave. As Maya finished sharing her story, the captain addressed the cabin, his voice calm but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment to acknowledge what just occurred. We strive to create a safe and welcoming environment for all our passengers. And I regret that this was not the case today. The cabin fell silent. All eyes on him. As we continue our journey, please know that we are committed to making this right. We will investigate this incident thoroughly and ensure that appropriate measures are taken. Your comfort and safety are our top priorities. A wave of supportive murmurs rippled through the passengers, many nodding in agreement. It felt as though a collective sense of justice was being served. Not just for Maya, but for anyone who had ever been treated unfairly. Maya leaned against her father, feeling the warmth of his presence and the strength of his unwavering support. She knew this moment was significant. A turning point not just for her, but for everyone on that flight. As the plane soared through the clouds, Maya felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She realized that standing up against injustice was about more than just her own experience, it was about creating a better world for everyone. One voice at a time. And with her father beside her, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As the plane continued its journey through the sky, the atmosphere in first class shifted from tension to a renewed sense of purpose. Maya snuggled closer to her father, her heart still racing from the events of the day but filled with a newfound sense of safety. She could feel the supportive energy of the other passengers surrounding her, their murmurs of solidarity washing over her like a comforting wave. Are you feeling okay now, Maya? David asked, gently brushing a curl behind her ear. His eyes were filled with concern, but beneath that lay a deep pride. I think so, Daddy, she replied, her voice steadying as she took a deep breath. I'm just really glad you're here. David smiled, pulling her into a warm embrace. I'll always be here for you, sweetheart. You did incredibly today. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. As the flight progressed, Clara returned with fresh juice and a plate of crackers, ensuring Maya had enough to eat. You need your strength, young lady, she said cheerfully, her genuine warmth lifting Maya's spirits further. Thank you, Clara, Maya said, her voice brightening as she accepted the snack. This is the best flight ever now. David chuckled, watching his daughter munch on the crackers. You've made it pretty special too, he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. He turned to Clara. Thank you for everything you're doing. It means a lot to us. Of course, Clara replied, her smile unwavering. We want every passenger to feel valued and cared for. It's part of what makes our airline the best. As the meal service continued, the captain made his rounds, checking in on passengers and ensuring everyone was comfortable. When he reached David and Maya, he paused, a serious look crossing his face. Mr. Lewis, I just wanted to reassure you that we are taking this matter very seriously. I've already contacted the airline's head office to initiate an investigation into the incident. Thank you, Captain. I appreciate that. David replied, his voice firm. This isn't just about my daughter, it's about creating a safe environment for all passengers, especially children. Absolutely. We are committed to ensuring that this doesn't happen again, the captain stated, his gaze steady. I'll keep you updated on the progress of our investigation. It's imperative that we learn from this. After the captain moved on, Maya glanced around the cabin, noticing the supportive smiles of the passengers nearby. She felt a sense of empowerment bubbling within her. For the first time, she understood that her voice mattered, that she could make a difference not just for herself but for others too. As the flight neared its destination, the announcement came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Maya looked out the window, watching as the sprawling cityscape of Atlanta came into view. Excitement bubbled within her. But beneath that, she felt a hint of anxiety creeping back. What would happen when they landed? Would they have to face more questions? Would they have to relive the ordeal? Hey, David said, noticing the change in her expression. It's going to be okay. Remember, we're not alone in this. We have support. And I'll be right beside you. I know, Daddy, Maya replied, her voice small but determined. I just want to make sure no one else gets hurt like I did. David smiled softly, his heart swelling with pride. You've already started making a difference, Maya. By speaking up, you've opened the door for others to do the same. This is just the beginning. As the plane touched down, the cabin erupted into applause, and Maya felt a rush of joy. She joined in, clapping her hands together, the sound echoing with the triumphant relief of everyone on board. The flight had not only brought them to their destination but had forged a bond of solidarity among them all. Once the plane came to a complete stop, the captain addressed the cabin again. Thank you for flying with us today. Please remain seated while we allow our ground crew to assist with the disembarking process. We appreciate your understanding and support. Maya's heart raced as they prepared to leave the plane. She felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Would there be reporters waiting for them? Would she have to share her story again? David sensed her anxiety and took her hand. No matter what happens, I want you to remember this: you are brave. And you did the right thing. No one can take that away from you. As the passengers began to file off the plane, Clara leaned down, giving Maya a warm smile. You're going to do great things, Maya. I can feel it, she said, her tone encouraging. Maya felt a swell of warmth in her chest. Thank you for being so nice to me, she replied, her voice brightening. After the last of the passengers disembarked, David stood up, gathering his belongings and ensuring Maya was ready to leave. Let's take this step together, he said, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. As they walked down the jet bridge, Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever awaited them. When they stepped into the terminal, the bustling atmosphere hit them like a wave, an unfamiliar mix of excitement, anxiety, and the lingering memories of what had just transpired. Remember, we're in this together, David said, his voice steady as they navigated through the crowd. He could feel Maya's grip on his hand tighten, a silent acknowledgement of their shared strength. Suddenly, they were met by a small contingent of airport security and law enforcement officers. The police chief, a tall man with a commanding presence, stepped forward. Mr. Lewis, thank you for your patience. We're ready to take your statement regarding the incident on the flight. Maya's heart raced again as she realized this was it, the moment she had both anticipated and dreaded. But as she looked up at her father, she felt a surge of determination. I can do this, she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the bustling noise of the terminal. You absolutely can, Maya, David replied, as if reading her thoughts. You've already proven how strong you are. Let's go make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Together, they stepped forward, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. knowing that with every step, they were paving the way for change, one voice at a time. The bustling terminal of Atlanta International Airport was a cacophony of sound, rolling suitcases, ringing phones, and the distant announcement of departing flights. But for Maya and David, the world around them felt muted. Their focus narrowed to the task ahead. They had just emerged from the jet bridge, and now they stood before a small group of airport security personnel and law enforcement officers, all waiting for their statement regarding the incident on the flight. The police chief, a tall man with a stern demeanor and a badge gleaming on his chest, stepped forward. "Mr. Lewis, I appreciate your cooperation in this matter. We want to ensure that we handle this situation appropriately. Can you provide us with a detailed account of what happened?" David nodded, drawing in a steadying breath. He felt Maya's small hand gripping his tightly, and he looked down at her. "Maya, do you want to tell them what happened? Or would you like me to start?" Maya took a moment to gather her courage. "I can do it," she said softly, but her eyes sparkled with determination. "Okay, sweetheart. Just remember, you're safe here." David reassured her, gently nudging her to step forward. Maya felt the eyes of the officers on her, their expressions a mix of concern and encouragement. I want to tell you what happened on the plane," she began, her voice trembling but steadying with each word. As she recounted the events of the flight, Maya felt a strange mix of vulnerability and empowerment. She described how she had been excited to fly with her father, how Sophia had treated her cruelly, and how she had felt invisible and afraid. The officers listened intently, jotting down notes and exchanging glances, their expressions serious. When she finished her account, the chief nodded, his expression grave. "Thank you for sharing that with us, Maya. You were very brave to speak up. We take these matters seriously, and your statement will help us with the investigation." Maya felt a swell of pride at his words. Maybe she really could make a difference. As the chief turned to address David, Maya noticed other passengers walking past, some offering sympathetic smiles, others glancing curiously at the commotion. It was comforting to know that they had witnessed her stand up for herself and that she was not alone. "Mr. Lewis," the chief said, "we want to ensure that Sophia is held accountable for her actions. It's crucial that we address this not just as an isolated incident, but as part of a larger issue in how passengers, especially children, are treated on flights." "I completely agree," David replied, his voice firm. "This isn't just about my daughter, it's about the culture of care that needs to exist within your airline. No child should have to endure what Maya did. I want to make sure that policy changes are implemented to prevent this from happening again." The chief nodded thoughtfully. "We will work closely with the airline to review their training protocols. We need to ensure that all staff understand the importance of treating every passenger with respect and dignity, regardless of age. It's unacceptable for anyone to feel unsafe while traveling." Maya watched as her father spoke with conviction, and she felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. He was not just her dad, he was her advocate, her protector. Together, they were standing up for what was right, and it felt powerful. "Is there anything else you'd like to add?" the chief asked, looking back at Maya. Taking a deep breath, she found her voice again. "I just want to make sure no one else gets hurt like I did. It's not fair," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "I want everyone to be treated nicely, especially kids. We should be able to feel safe." The chief's expression softened, and he smiled at her. "That's a very important message, Maya. Thank you for sharing that with us. Your bravery will help us make sure that change happens." As they finished their statements, David felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had taken a significant step towards accountability, not just for Maya, but for all children who traveled with the airline. Once the officers finished their notes, they thanked David and Maya for their cooperation and assured them they would keep them informed about the investigation. As they turned to leave, Maya's heart raced with anticipation. What would happen next? Would Sophia face serious consequences for her actions? "Daddy," Maya said as they began to walk away from the group, "do you think Sophia will get in trouble?" David paused, looking down at her with a thoughtful expression. "I believe so, Maya. But what's most important is that her actions are recognized for what they were. It's crucial for her and for everyone in the airline industry to understand that this kind of behavior is unacceptable." Maya nodded, feeling reassured by her father's words. "I hope she learns to be nicer," she said quietly. "Me too, sweetheart," David replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders as they made their way through the bustling terminal. "It's not just about punishment, it's about understanding and growth. Everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes." As they stepped outside into the warm Atlanta air, Maya took a deep breath. the weight of the day beginning to lift. The sun shone brightly, and she could hear the distant sounds of laughter and joy from families reuniting, travelers sharing stories, and the energy of life swirling around her. "Can we get some ice cream?" she asked suddenly, her eyes sparkling. David chuckled, his heart lifting at the sight of her enthusiasm. "Of course. You've earned it after everything you've been through today." As they walked toward the ice cream stand, Maya felt a surge of hope and happiness. She had faced her fears and stood up for herself, and now she was ready to celebrate. With each step, she felt stronger and more confident, knowing that her voice had made a difference. In that moment, Maya understood that even in the face of adversity, there was a path forward, a path filled with the promise of change, kindness, and the unwavering support of her father by her side. Together, they would continue to fight for what was right, not just for themselves, but for everyone who needed a champion. And as she savored her ice cream, Maya knew that her journey was just beginning. In the days following the flight, life resumed its usual rhythm for Maya and David. But the echoes of their experience lingered in the background, shaping their thoughts and actions. As they settled back into their daily routine, the weight of what had happened began to manifest in different ways. Maya returned to school, but the excitement she usually felt was tinged with apprehension. She walked into her classroom, her heart racing at the thought of sharing her experience with her friends. Would they understand? Would they treat her differently? As she sat down at her desk, her best friend, Lily, approached her. "Hey, Maya. I missed you. How was your trip?" Lily asked, her voice cheerful and light. Maya hesitated, memories of the flight flashing through her mind. "It was, interesting," she replied cautiously. "Interesting? That sounds fun. Did you do anything cool?" Lily pressed, her curiosity evident. Maya bit her lip, weighing her words. She wanted to share, but the thought of reliving the pain made her stomach twist. "Well, there was this really nice flight attendant who helped me," she began, deciding to focus on the positive. "And I got to see the clouds up close." "That sounds amazing," Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. "I wish I could fly. I want to see the clouds too." Maya smiled at her friend's enthusiasm, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "Maybe one day we can fly together," she said, the idea sparking a flicker of joy in her heart. As the day went on, Maya found solace in the familiar comforts of school, her favorite books, art projects, and recess with her friends. Yet, beneath the surface, she carried the weight of her experience, a silent reminder that she was still healing. After school, David noticed a change in Maya. She seemed quieter, more contemplative. As they sat down for dinner, he gently probed. "How was your day, Maya? You seemed a little distracted." Maya poked her food around her plate, her mind racing. "It was okay, I guess. I talked to Lily about the trip," she admitted, her voice soft. "That's good," David replied, his heart aching with the understanding that Maya was still processing everything. "If you ever want to talk about what happened, I'm here to listen." "I know, Daddy," Maya said, looking up at him with wide, earnest eyes. "It's just, sometimes it feels like it was a bad dream. I don't want to think about it too much." David nodded, understanding the delicate balance she was trying to navigate. "That's okay. Healing takes time, and it's important to take care of yourself. You don't have to rush into anything." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and for a moment, Maya felt a wave of relief. She loved these moments with her father, the way he always made her feel safe. But as the days passed, the incident lingered in her thoughts, intertwining with her memories of flying and her dreams of adventure. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging day at school, Maya found herself sitting on her bed, clutching Mr. Fluffy tightly. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar comfort of her stuffed animal. She remembered her father's words about speaking up, about being brave. It was time to take a step forward. That weekend, David took Maya to a local park. The sun shone brightly, casting golden rays over the lush greenery, and the laughter of children echoed in the air. As they strolled along the path, Maya felt a sense of calm wash over her. The warmth of the sun and the gentle breeze lifted her spirits, and she turned to her father. "Daddy, can we sit for a while?" she asked, pointing to a shaded bench beneath a large oak tree. "Of course," David replied, guiding her to the bench. They sat together, the sound of children playing nearby providing a soothing backdrop. "Maya," David began, his tone serious yet gentle, "I want you to know that it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. If you need to talk, I'm here." Maya took a deep breath, her heart racing as she gathered her thoughts. I keep thinking about what happened on the plane, she admitted. Her voice small. And sometimes it makes me feel really sad. But I also feel strong for standing up for myself. David smiled. Pride swelling within him. You are so strong. Maya. What you did took a lot of courage. And it's completely normal to feel sad about what happened. It's part of the healing process. Maya nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her. I just want to make sure no one else has to go through what I did. It's not fair. That's a beautiful sentiment. David said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. By sharing your story, you're already helping others. You have a voice. And it matters. Encouraged by her father's words, Maya felt a spark ignite within her. Maybe I can do something more, she mused aloud. Her eyes lighting up with determination. Maybe I can talk to my class about it. I want them to know that it's important to be kind. David's heart swelled with admiration. That's an incredible idea. Maya. Sharing your experience could help others understand the importance of kindness and respect. You can inspire them to stand up against bullying and injustice. Maya smiled brightly. A new sense of purpose filling her. I want to be brave. Just like you. Daddy, she said. Her determination shining through. As they sat beneath the oak tree, Maya felt a renewed sense of strength. She knew healing would take time. But she was ready to take that step forward. With her father by her side and her newfound purpose guiding her, she was prepared to share her story and make a difference in the world. That evening, as they walked home hand in hand, Maya felt lighter. She had found her voice. And with it came the promise of hope and healing. No longer just a victim of circumstance. She was ready to be an advocate for change, not just for herself, but for others like her. And in that moment, beneath the warm glow of the setting sun, Maya understood that she was not alone. She had the support of her father, her friends, and a community ready to listen. Together, they would create a world where kindness prevailed and every voice was heard. As the days turned into weeks, Maya prepared for what felt like the most important moment of her young life. With her father's unwavering support, she had decided to share her story with her class, believing that her voice could inspire others to stand up against unfairness and promote kindness. The morning of the big day arrived. Bright and sunny, with birds chirping outside her window. Maya sat at the kitchen table, fidgeting with her pencil as she reviewed her notes one last time. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Would her classmates understand? Would they listen? Are you ready, Maya? David asked, pouring a cup of coffee while glancing over his shoulder. Maya took a deep breath. I think so, she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. I've practiced a lot, but I still feel a little scared. That's perfectly normal. David reassured her, sitting down across from her. Remember, you're speaking from the heart, and that's what matters most. Just be yourself. And don't forget how brave you are. Maya nodded, feeling a bit of the nervousness ease away. Thanks, Daddy. I just want to make sure no one feels alone like I did. Just remember, by sharing your experience, you're already making a difference, he said. Encouragingly, you're going to do great. As they arrived at school, Maya's excitement returned, fluttering in her stomach. She walked through the familiar halls, greeting friends and teachers, trying to absorb the positive energy around her. But as she approached her classroom, the nerves crept back in. When the bell rang, signaling the start of class, Maya felt her heart thumping in her chest. She glanced at Lily, who offered her a thumbs up and a bright smile from across the room, which brought a small smile to Maya's face in return. Maya, are you ready for your presentation? Ms. Anderson, her teacher, asked as she walked over, her expression warm and encouraging. Yeah, I think so, Maya replied, her voice steadying. Whenever you're ready, you can start, Ms. Anderson said, giving her a reassuring nod. Maya stood up, her heart racing as she stepped in front of her classmates. She felt their eyes on her, some curious, some supportive, and some uncertain. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the sides of the desk for support, her mind racing. Hi everyone, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me recently. As she spoke, Maya's nerves began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose. She described the flight with her father, the excitement she felt, and how it turned into a moment of fear and hurt. She shared how she had been treated poorly by the flight attendant and how she felt invisible and scared. But what I want you to know, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger, is that I didn't let that stop me. I learned that it's important to stand up for yourself and to speak out when something isn't right. She could see her classmates listening intently, their expressions shifting from curiosity to empathy. Some leaned in closer, captivated by her words. "I felt really alone during that flight," she said, her voice steady. "But then my dad helped me. And together we made sure that the people in charge knew what happened. I realized that by sharing my story, I could help others who might feel the same way." Maya paused, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. "I want to encourage all of you to be kind and to stand up for each other. If you see someone being treated unfairly or if you're going through something tough, don't be afraid to speak up. You are never alone. And your voice matters." A hushed silence fell over the room as Maya finished her speech. She felt a rush of relief wash over her, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her classmates were staring at her, some with tears in their eyes, others nodding in agreement. "Thank you for listening," Maya concluded, her heart swelling with pride. "I hope we can all work together to make our school a kinder place." Applause erupted in the classroom, and Maya's cheeks flushed with warmth. She looked at Lily, who was clapping the loudest, beaming with pride. Ms. Anderson stood up, her face filled with admiration. "Maya, that was incredible. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It takes a lot of courage to speak up. And you've inspired us all today," she said, her voice filled with warmth. As the applause echoed in her ears, Maya felt a rush of joy and gratitude. She had done it. She had shared her experience and made an impact. The fear that had once gripped her heart transformed into a sense of empowerment. After class, as her classmates approached her to express their support and admiration, Maya felt a sense of belonging she had longed for. She realized that her courage to share her story not only helped her heal but also resonated with others, encouraging them to speak up against injustice and bullying. Walking home that day, hand in hand with her father, Maya felt lighter, as if a new chapter had begun. "I can't believe I did that," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. David smiled down at her, his heart swelling with pride. "You were amazing, Maya. You stood up for yourself and for others. You're a true champion for change." As they strolled through the neighborhood, Maya looked up at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She had turned her experience into something powerful and meaningful, and she knew this was just the beginning. In that moment, she realized that standing up for kindness and justice would forever be a part of her journey. She was no longer just a little girl who had faced cruelty, she was a voice for change, ready to inspire others to do the same. And as they reached home, Maya understood that her story was far from over. With each step forward, she was creating a legacy of compassion, resilience, and hope that would ripple through her school and beyond. The week following Maya's impactful speech felt electric. News of her bravery spread throughout the school like wildfire. Her classmates spoke of her courage in hushed tones, and soon her story reached teachers and parents alike. It wasn't long before Maya found herself at the center of conversations about kindness, respect, and the importance of speaking up against bullying. In the days that followed, her school announced a special assembly focused on promoting a culture of kindness and respect. Ms. Anderson approached Maya, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We'd like you to help organize the assembly," she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "You've inspired so many people, and we think your input would make a huge difference." Maya's heart raced at the thought of taking on such an important role. "Really? I'd love to help," she exclaimed, her confidence swelling. As the date for the assembly approached, Maya and Ms. Anderson brainstormed ideas. They wanted to create an environment where students felt comfortable sharing their experiences and discussing how they could make their school a better place. Maya suggested having a kindness wall where students could write messages of encouragement, appreciation, and stories of kindness they'd witnessed or experienced. "That's a fantastic idea, Maya," Ms. Anderson beamed. "We can set up a large bulletin board in the main hallway. I'll make sure we have all the supplies we need." Maya couldn't contain her excitement as they began planning. She envisioned students stepping forward to share their stories, creating a sense of community and support. She wanted everyone to feel heard, just like she had during her speech. On the day of the assembly, the school buzzed with energy. Students filled the auditorium, chatting excitedly as they took their seats. Maya stood backstage with Ms. Anderson, her heart pounding in her chest. "Are you ready?" Ms. Anderson asked, giving her a reassuring smile. Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. "I think so. I just want to make sure everyone feels comfortable." As the assembly began, the principal welcomed the students and introduced Maya and Ms. Anderson. Maya stepped into the spotlight, her nerves momentarily forgotten as she faced the audience. The warm glow of the stage lights surrounded her, and she felt the supportive energy of her peers. "Hi everyone," she said, her voice steady but filled with excitement. Today, we're here to talk about kindness and the importance of standing up for each other. She shared her story again, recounting her experience on the flight and how she had felt invisible and afraid. But this time, her message was about empowerment, about the strength found in community and connection. As she spoke, she noticed her classmates listening intently, some even taking notes. Kindness isn't just about being nice to each other, it's about looking out for one another. Maya emphasized. It's about creating a safe space where we can all feel respected and valued. I want to encourage each of you to think about how you can contribute to our school culture. As she finished speaking, a wave of applause erupted in the auditorium, and Maya felt a swell of pride. She stepped down from the stage, her heart racing with adrenaline. Now, we're going to introduce our kindness wall, Ms. Anderson announced. And Maya watched as large pieces of colorful paper were rolled out. Students were invited to write messages and stories of kindness, creating a vibrant tapestry of support. One by one, students came forward, sharing their own experiences, stories of friendship, understanding, and the little acts of kindness that often went unnoticed. Each story added another layer to the wall, transforming it into a powerful symbol of community. As the assembly came to a close, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. The energy in the room was electric, a palpable commitment to fostering kindness. She knew that the seeds of change had been planted, and she was excited to see how they would grow. After the assembly, students gathered around the kindness wall, reading each other's messages and sharing their thoughts. Maya stood back, watching as her classmates connected and embraced the spirit of kindness she had hoped to inspire. That evening, as Maya recounted the day's events to David, she felt a glow of happiness. It went so well, Daddy. Everyone was so supportive. And I could see how much it meant to them, she said, her eyes shining. David smiled, his heart swelling with pride. You did an incredible job, Maya. You've inspired your classmates to make a real change. I'm so proud of you. Maya felt a rush of gratitude for her father's support. She realized that she wasn't just speaking up for herself anymore, she was part of something much bigger. Her actions had sparked a movement within her school, and she was determined to continue advocating for kindness and respect. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effect of her speech and the assembly continued to spread. Students began organizing kindness events, like Compliment Day and Random Acts of Kindness Week. The school community thrived on this new energy, fostering a culture where everyone felt valued. Maya found herself in the role of a leader, inspiring her peers to embrace kindness as a way of life. She felt empowered by the changes she was helping to create, and she understood that standing up for what was right could lead to a brighter future for everyone. One afternoon, while working on a new project for the kindness wall, Maya sat with Lily in the library. I can't believe how much has changed since your speech, Lily said, her face glowing with excitement. It's like everyone wants to be nice now. Maya smiled, her heart swelling with joy. I think we all just needed a reminder that kindness matters, she replied, and that we can make a difference if we stand together. As they continued working, Maya realized that her journey was just beginning. She had found her voice and her purpose, and now she was ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities ahead. And with each step she took, she knew that she was not just a little girl who had faced adversity, she was a force for change, ready to create a world where kindness and compassion flourished.